Hello and welcome to episode 3 of the Cloud Computing for the C-Suite show with Brad Nelson, an internationally recognized and world's #1 cloud industry expert and thought leader, David Linthicum. This show is sponsored by Nelson Hilliard, cloud computing recruitment specialist, placing great people in cloud, IoT, fintech and AI. In this week's show, David and I will be talking about cloud security and new technology and the risks at C-level. Or should I say C-suite level for the Global 5000. Hi Dave, how's it going? You're looking refreshed after Vegas.
Hey, I'm ready to go, man. I'm back from Vegas, shy a couple $1,000, ready to, take on the world. So I have to get back to work.
Are you still doing those slot machines in your sleep?
No, I played a little video blackjack and even learned how to play poker, but it doesn't take long to get rid of some cash there. I was there for 5 days, so I got rid of more cash than I normally get rid of. But I put a limit on what I'm losing, and as long as I'm having fun, it's all good. And hey, the drinks are free.
Fantastic. Well, that's a bonus. And you were busy up there at a couple of conferences, weren't you?
Yeah, I spoke at CA World. I had a great time with those guys. Big company, but they're kind of reinventing themselves into something that's a little bit more innovative than they were in the past. And then also one of my favorite conferences, which was owned by GigaOm, before GigaOm went under, and that was Structure. And this was 2017 in South San Francisco, and we got to talk to the Google guys, and I had lots of great panelists, and we had lots of great discussions, and I had fun with the audience. And it was a really good learning experience for me because I got to take in, what's going on in the world of cloud computing, what's working, what's not, as well as dispense advice. And I think it was a very good symbiotic relationship. It's a smaller conference. It's a more intimate conference, but it's much more valuable.
Yeah, sure. Oh, that's great. Well, it's good to have you back. I'm sure you're very pleased to be back in the comfort of your own house.
Yes, and bandwidth.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we did struggle a bit, didn't we, while you were in Vegas?
Hotel bandwidth, no good.
No good, no good. C-levels in the Global 5000 companies are embracing infrastructure change with cloud. What should their considerations of risk be for cloud security, Dave?
I think there really is a low risk, and the C-suites, the C-level folks that I talk to really don't understand that. So cloud computing kind of scares them to death because they're looking at the newspapers and at the morning news shows every week, and there's some kind of a major hack that's occurred that's really kind of taking companies down in terms of PR relationships, things like that. And I really don't see that much of a risk in moving information into the cloud unless you do something dopey like not securing the systems properly, not leveraging state-of-the-art security, encryption, identity access management, two-factor authentication, things like that. In building systems in the cloud, we typically make them more secure than a lot of the on-premise systems. So that's why a lot of the hacks are occurring with their on-premise, not necessarily the stuff that's in the cloud. So my advice to them, if you're going to mitigate your risks, I would bring in outside consultants, white hat hackers, to audit the existing systems to make sure there's no vulnerabilities that haven't been taken care of. Because I think in most of the Global 5000 companies out there, there's thousands of exposures, systems that aren't updated, routers that haven't been updated, maybe some malware affected has gotten into, certain aspects of the system. And if they just look for it and spend some money, it's preventable, 100% preventable. But if they, push off any new technology, and deal with their old technology that's full of vulnerabilities, they're just going to end up in the same boat as everybody else has been hacked over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I know. You're absolutely right. It's something that I've actually done a piece on for this week's news, where the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, or as it's known, the abc.com.au, has confirmed that their S3, Amazon AWS S3, has had a data leak. And it's lost, I think it was, I'm not sure how many thousands now, but absolutely tens of thousands of streams of data have just been stolen, just been hacked, just like that. And Uber as well. So it's been also Uber that had, I think it was on GitHub, if my memory serves me correctly. They were actually hacked a year ago, and over 7 million drivers' data had been stolen. And they actually didn't tell anyone about it until now. And this is a report that's come out via Bloomberg. And what they did is they paid the hackers to take the data back. So they didn't tell anyone what had happened. I'm laughing, but I mean the irony is their glitch at GitHub, that's used as their main platform for their developers. They paid over $100,000 to get their data back and then not tell anyone about it.
Yeah, it's kind of a poor man's ransomware, and I think we're going to see a lot of that coming up, where it's kind of information terrorism in terms of people taking over systems. And cloud, by the way, isn't invulnerable, and so people are going to find that they're going to get hacked if they don't really able to secure their tenant instance, and that's their responsibility. So if you get a cloud account, if you get an account on AWS, I'm in charge of securing that because I'm giving out my passwords and encryption keys and things like that. It's not going to remain secure no matter what Amazon is able to do. Now, cross-tenant attacks are going to be game changers if there's some way that I can get from one tenant to another within an AWS instance or Azure instance and things like that. But the reality is that we just have to be, if we're going to move into any kind of bit of technology, we use common sense. And really, the security of those systems is going to be dependent on the brain power of the people who are building it and the people who are securing it. It has to be systemic to everything you do within the system. And unless we get that at some point, we're going to have this kind of stuff happening all the time.
And you're absolutely right. It comes down to fundamental basic, the fundamental basics, because it is literally the user error that hasn't protected the bucket. Now everyone knows you need to protect your bucket, and it's the S3 AWS buckets that have been left open, and just can be accessed. Obviously, you've got to know what you're doing, but you can access all of the data within the bucket, and I think that seems to be the common denominator. I think Amazon have now introduced a more of a prompted system. I think I did this on last week's news, where people are actually prompted to say, "Have you checked your security on your bucket?" And they've ignored that one. Okay, we'll tell you again. Have you protected the security on your bucket? And they ignore that one. Okay, are you stupid? Your bucket is unlocked. So, I don't actually think that's part of AWS's business platform, if I'm honest, but it might get people's attention. Maybe we need to get a Twitter campaign on the AWS bucket thing. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we should. And if it wouldn't get me arrested or fired, and one of the things that I recommend that they do is that they have people within the organization that are constantly trying to figure out how to crack the system and looking for vulnerabilities. And that's the only way to find it. We talk about white hat hackers. I use those people all the time. There's different firms and agencies to do that, to have them attempt to go in and access the system, because you can only find the vulnerabilities by people testing, accessing the system. But we have the capability to be very secure right now, not 100% secure. It's never going to be 100%. But to reduce risks to almost minimal levels that are greatly acceptable and better than we have now. We're just refusing to spend the money to implement it. And ultimately, those are the organizations that are going to find that they're going to be in the news the next day, where their information is stolen, ransomware, things like that. And people who are customers are going to lose faith in them very quickly, and they're going to find that they're going to leave billions of dollars on the table, if not go out of business.
Absolutely. It's that initial investment into the white hackers and the security from the day dot of concept before you even go to the market, or certainly start using people's data for any particular reason, that if you don't make that initial investment, it's going to cost you potentially billions. And like you say, you lose your public integrity and your business is as good as, under, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And in standard operating procedure, if you're going to run in information systems on platforms, then security has to be systemic to everything you do. And the auditing and being proactive and being, even building security into applications. One of the reasons we're moving into DevOps is because it's now, DevSecOps, where we're building security continuously into these applications as we're putting them out there. And that's the only way we're going to beat the hackers. The systems are typically broken into if they're put into production and they're left alone. So in other words, the vulnerabilities aren't taken care of, the OSs aren't patched, things like that. The great thing about moving it into the cloud, you're typically going to get your operating systems and your security patches are going to be automatic from the particular cloud provider, and you don't have to think about it that much. But you still have to turn on the right security systems and the right security architecture. It's just the way it's going to be. And I just see we're talking about talent on this show from time to time. I think the lacking security talent out there is really kind of causing the issues right now.
Yeah, I do agree with you, absolutely, and I think DevSecOps is a huge thing at the moment and needs to be. I think we've kind of answered my next question, but I'll roll the question out anyway, just to see if there is anything you'd like to elaborate on. With your experience as being a CTO and a CEO, how would you mitigate this sort of risk, and do you have some examples, Dave?
Yeah, I hold the CIO accountable and at the board level in terms of what he or she needs to do and their responsibility in terms of protecting the systems and in also reviewing some of the security procedures. I'm a technical person, so I can understand exactly what's going on and how things are being secured. But if I'm not a technical person, which most CEOs are not, then I would hire the appropriate consultants to come in and do some auditing and make sure that they're working and playing well together and get the reports out there. And that would be a yearly activity. And they would report to the board, by the way. They wouldn't report to some employee within the company. And the reason why is just because of the amount of damage that something like that can do. The reason we have outside auditors that come in and look at books every year, at least the United States companies we do, and people who come in and do taxes, is because they're able to apply their expertise from the outside in looking at lots of different best practices in companies. And you need to do that every year in terms of security, whether it's in the cloud or not. So that would be my recommendation.
Well, thank you, Dave, and thank you for another great C-Suite show this week. I really enjoy our weekly C-Suite shows.
I do as well, man. We'll do it again next week.
Absolutely. Get that word out there, all the way live from Washington, D.C. and Melbourne, Australia.
Yes. Far away, but they're close together at the same time.
Yeah, well, exactly right. It's almost like we're in the same room, but kind of different.
Yep.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dave. Really appreciate your time. Thanks very much for watching, and remember to like, comment and subscribe to the Nelson Hilliard channel so you don't miss out on the weekly cloud computing news and all of the cloud computing shows that I do with David Linthicum. You can reach David on Twitter, which is David or at David Linthicum, and you can also tweet us and you can tweet me at Nelson_Hilliard. And thanks again for watching.